dear viewers, and welcome to a new edition of our program Africa Today. In today's edition, we are going to talk about the South Center that elects Ambassador Mohamed Edris as board member for the African continent. And we'll start with this report where the South Center Council of Representatives has elected by default Ambassador Mohamed Edris as a board member of the Council for Africa.
The Council of Representatives of the South Center in Africa elected Ambassador Mohamed Edris to be a member in the Center's Board of Directors as a representative of the African bloc during its 24th meeting. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated in a statement that the delegations of member states welcomed during the meeting of the Center's Board of Directors Ambassador Mohamed Edris as a member of the Council. The delegation of countries also praised his rich CV and distinguished experiences in international and regional multilateral work, which makes it an important addition to the Center's work. Ambassador Mohamed Edris is a veteran Egyptian diplomat who represented Egypt in many countries and also was appointed as Egypt's permanent representative to the United Nations. The Foreign Ministry said that the appointment is an appreciation of the Egyptian diplomat's efforts during his past career.
And to shed more light on the issue, we are very much delighted to have His Excellency Ambassador Mohamed Edris, former permanent representative of Egypt to the UN in New York and member of the advisory group to the UN Secretary General for Peace Building Fund, over the phone. Good afternoon, Your Excellency.
Good afternoon. All the pleasure being with you and your distinguished followers.
Thank you so much, sir, and congratulations for this very important nomination.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And indeed, the recognition of my country, Egypt, and for the Egyptian diplomacy and diplomatic institution, the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Indeed, sir, well deserved. Sir, the South Center Council of Representatives has elected by default Your Excellency as the board member of the Council for Africa. Can you tell us more about this important nomination?
Well, actually, this is much linked to two important concepts currently in the international scene for the for the last few decades, which is one is the global south, the concept of the global south, and the other is South-South cooperation. Global south, of course, it's the country which have a common identity, being developing countries. It happens that geographically are also in the southern part of the world, but the common identity is they are developing countries. And the other is South-South cooperation and the importance of getting these countries to put their acts together and cooperate together and enhance their cooperation. So there was something called the South Commission, then, which was turned later in 1995 to the South Center. So the South Center is an intergovernmental organization of developing countries that's established by intergovernmental treaty, and it replaced the South Commission in 1995. And of course, it's like an independent policy think tank for developing countries. And it holds observer status at the United Nations and many other developmental agencies.
Indeed.
And it aims, of course, at enhancing the cooperation of developing countries in different issues.
Yes, indeed. Mr. Ambassador, the delegations commanded your rich biography and outstanding experience in the international and regional multilateral work. Would you please shed more light on your outstanding experience in these domains?
Quite frankly, humbly, I'm grateful that they found that I have a good credentials for that post. Yes. But of course, I am just an Egyptian diplomat, member of this very important and able institution, the Egyptian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Of course, I had lots of opportunities to serve my country in different places, different missions, including for the United Nations in New York, where I worked twice there, one as Deputy Permanent Representative and another as a Permanent Representative. I was also Ambassador to Ethiopia and Representative to the African Union and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and worked in our embassies in Washington, D.C., in Damascus, in Turkey.
Yes.
So over the years, it happened that it was a good opportunity to accumulate experience and knowledge about different issues and about the challenges facing the countries of the world, especially, of course, the countries of our part of the world, which are the developing countries. And through this important organization, the South Center, the idea is to try to provide, to be like a depository for knowledge and information for developing countries, to provide policy guidance and advice on different issues related to sustainable development, to economic issues, trade, international trade issues, to share experience also and lessons learned. And this is important in international organizations, to share lessons and to share experiences among developing countries, and to support the developing countries also in the major negotiating processes which are happening on different related issues. And also this center prepares regular policy papers, policy briefs on the main issues of interest to developing countries. It's also worth to say that Egypt is a founding member of this South Center, which now has 54 member states. Egypt is a founding member of it. And the current chair of this center is the former president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, but also the distinguished former Secretary General of the United Nations, Boutros Ghali, late Boutros Ghali. He also chaired that center, or chaired this center between 2003 and 2006. Yes. So Egypt is like almost really part and parcel and active member of the issues of developing countries, whether it is the South Center, whether it is G77 and China, whether it is any forum which is related to the issues and challenges facing the developing countries.
Yes, indeed. Mr. Ambassador, how do you see Egypt's commitment to advancing the sustainable development on the continent?
Of course, Egypt has a vested interest in sustainable development because as a country which is located and in a very strategic part of the world, a country which has also vast potential of resources and of contribution in the developing world, has a vested interest in enhancing the cooperation between South countries and developing countries, because the current challenges are massive and formidable, and no one country alone can be able to overcome it. Even the developed countries are not able to handle the challenges alone. There is a need for international cooperation. But of course, this is more important and more relevant to developing countries, which of course are struggling to have a more fair share in the international economy, international trade. And of course, Egypt has always been in the forefront of these attempts to achieve better circumstances, more enabling circumstances for developing countries. And of course, this is sustainable development is related to much issues, developmental issues, environmental issues, climate change. There are also so much have been so much vested in this issue. You remember that we hosted the COP27 and were able to get one important gain for developing countries, which is the Fund for Loss and Damage. At the same time, Egypt now is preparing for a fourth edition of the Aswan Forum for Sustainable Development and for Peace and Sustainable Development. This is important contribution for the African countries. This is the first platform of its kind which combines the issues of peace and sustainable development. And Egypt pioneered this during Egypt's chairmanship of the African Union and is still continuing in a yearly manner. So there are lots of fronts actually, but of course this is an ongoing battle. It's not an easy challenge because as you see now in the world is facing so much dramatic challenges, and the challenges are not monolithic. They are multidimensional or poly crises. There are challenges on the political level, which is not
Yes.
isolated from challenges on the economic level, and geostrategic challenges, the environmental challenges, the health challenges, and all these are really projecting so much challenges for developing countries and necessitate lots of putting acts together, lots of cooperation and enhancing the cooperation among developing countries, among the global south. And of course, this is sometimes not easy because there are also differences.
Yes.
These also, it's not one block. Developing countries currently and the global south is not one block. There is differentiation. Countries at a better and more advanced stage. Countries are still lagging behind. Countries are trying to catch up. So to harmonize this and to build a solid common position and solid block is not easy. But there are lots of instruments for this, and the South Center is one of these instruments.
Indeed. Mr. Ambassador, how do you view the importance of linking peace and development and addressing the challenges of peace and security in the African continent?
Of course, it's always said it's a conventional wisdom that without peace, without development, there's no peace. Both are so much interlinked, intertwined, and they are two faces of one coin. Without this, you cannot have the other one. Of course, the African continent is a continent with vast resources, which is not well used, not well exploited, not well utilized for the benefit of its people, due to lots of security and challenges and lots of peace challenges. Lots, unfortunately, of conflicts within the African continent, interstate conflicts, sometimes interstate conflicts. We have lots of instability in the African, lots of instability in the African continent, and all this, of course, prevents and hinders the possibility of making a use of the vast resources of the continent. At the same time, this continent is demographically has a majority of youth, and without having also development, this demographic dividend of youth can be a liability, not a virtue, because there is the absence of development, there is absence of employment, there is a spread of terrorist organizations. So all these are interlinked together, the stability and security, and also the economic development and social development, and having utilizing the resources of the African continent and the potential of the African continent, which unfortunately are still in Africa caught in this really sad, pathetic formula of being the wealthiest continent and the poorest people, unfortunately.
Yes. Sir, from your point of view, how you can help Egypt through your nomination for this very important post?
I will, of course, me and Michael, no one alone can achieve fruitful results individually, but it's a teamwork. Of course, I am member of a board. The center has a board of course, there is a council which has representatives of all the member countries, but there is the board of the center is full of 9 members from the different continents. I am representing the African continent. So, of course, me and my colleagues from developing countries will try to use our past experience and work on international organizations, and, of course, me myself bringing lots of knowledge from and experience from Egypt, and lots of Egyptians who worked before in this field, and I learned a lot of them from them, and I try to also project what knowledge and what experience I got from my predecessors and from my the people whom I learned from in my country, Egypt, and of course cooperating with other colleagues in the board, trying to do together some progress in the work of the center, especially that now the world is at crossroads. This time we are at an inflection point in the world order. There are lots of challenges, and maybe you know the UN is planning for summit called Summit of the Future,
Yes.
which is going to be at the margins of the upcoming General Assembly next September.
Yes.
And the South Center recently had one important workshop on the preparation for the Summit of the Future, preparing the
Yes.
positions of the developing countries, preparing what developing countries would like to see in the outcome of this summit. So there are lots of venues here, and Egypt has lots of has historical contribution actually, and ongoing contribution through lots of colleagues who worked in this field before, and I will try to follow suit and do my best.
Indeed, Ambassador Mohamed Edris, former permanent representative of Egypt to the UN in New York and member of the advisory group to the UN Secretary General for the Peace Building Fund. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us. It was really an honor, and congratulations again for this very important post, and wish you all the best. Our dear viewers, with that, we come to the end of this edition of our program Africa Today. Till tomorrow with another crew, I'm Rabia, signing off. Many thanks for watching.